William and Catherine warned to keep their family away from Harry and Meghan, and suddenly, what sounded like a quiet royal concern is exploding into something far more unsettling, because this isn't just about distance anymore. This is about fear, control, and a question nobody in the palace wants to answer out loud. What exactly are they trying to protect their children from?
Calls for Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, to keep Archie and Lily away from Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis at all costs. Meghan Markle is threatening to sue the British royal family and Prince William if her titles are removed.
The tension surrounding Prince Harry and Prince William has reached another uncomfortable point. But look closer, this isn't just another chapter in their endless fallout. No, the conversation has shifted somewhere deeper, somewhere more dangerous. Their children. And the moment that shift happened, everything changed. Because when conversations move from personal disagreements to the next generation, it stops being a feud and starts becoming a long-term strategy. Why now? Why are voices suddenly questioning whether Prince William and Catherine should allow Archie and Elizabeth to grow close to Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis? And more importantly, who benefits from keeping them apart? The explanations being pushed sound almost reasonable at first. Different lives, different rules, different exposures. But listen carefully, because underneath those polished arguments, something far more loaded is being implied. That one set of children is being raised inside a controlled, carefully structured royal system, while the other, a mystery, an unknown. And in royal circles, unknowns are dangerous, because unknowns can't be managed.
Yes, it would be nice. I was saying it's nice for them to get to know each other, but it's been so long, and you don't know if Archie and Lily are civilized, right? They might eat with their toes and, pick things up with their feet. I don't know what's been going on, because they've been living on the frickin' compound like children of the corn, and like the hills have eyes, and we never hear from them. We don't know anything about Archie and Lilibet. Like, have they had their shots? That might be better that they hadn't. But what's going on? We don't know. You might not want your kids to play with them because they've been living on the compound. They might not be socialized. So I understand saying George, Charlotte, and Louis, they have busy schedules. Guess what? Our kids are real royalty and they have a lot going on this summer. They have better things to do than to hang out with your children. And if you wanted your kids to be friends with ours and with the cousins, you wouldn't have run off to the US and trashed our.
And suddenly, the tone shifts from cautious concern to outright suspicion. Words like isolated, unsocialized, different environments start floating around like coded warnings. But is this really about the children? Or is this about what the children represent? Because let's be honest, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis are not just children. They are the future of the monarchy. Carefully guided, carefully protected, every move calculated, every exposure controlled. So when Archie and Elizabeth enter the conversation raised far away from that system, outside its rules, it creates a clash, not of personalities, but of worlds. And that clash, it's making people nervous. Royal commentator Link Lauren doesn't attack directly, but listen closely, because the argument isn't about blame, it's about incompatibility. Two households, two realities, two completely different versions of what life looks like. And when those worlds collide, the fear isn't that something will happen immediately. The fear is what could unfold over time. Influence, questions, comparisons, even loyalty. Because children grow and children talk. And in a family where image is everything, even a conversation between cousins can carry consequences. Then comes Angela 11 and the temperature rises again. Because now the focus shifts straight to Catherine, the protector, the stabilizer, the one who has spent years building a controlled environment for George, Charlotte, and Louis. And suddenly the question becomes almost surgical. Would Catherine risk introducing instability into that environment? Would Catherine knowingly open the door to something unpredictable?
Annoyed about this. Prince Harry has such a cheek that he is now piling the pressure on Catherine, the Princess of Wales, to step in and try and save his failing relationship with Prince William. Not understanding that it's over, brother. It is gone. Finito. Just accept it. Catherine tried so hard for so long. You threw her efforts back in her face with your continued attacks, not just on William and Camilla, but on Catherine herself. These days, he tries to take both sides of the argument. But having spoken to both couples or sources connected to both couples, the big revelation from him is that Prince Harry doesn't even have William's phone number anymore. That is, of course, a mortifying revelation for the Duke of Delusion, especially given Wakeford goes on to say that even if he did, Prince William would not.
And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because now the conversation isn't just about distance, it's about damage. Allegations, accusations, the past refusing to stay buried. The suggestion that Catherine's efforts were not just ignored, but thrown back. Oh, and if that's the perception inside certain circles, then every decision moving forward starts to look less like avoidance and more like protection. Protection not just from external noise, but from internal disruption. But then something even more revealing slips through. Silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than any public statement. No contact, no phone numbers, no direct line. That's not just distance, that's disconnection. And once that line is gone, rebuilding it isn't just difficult, it becomes almost impossible because pride steps in and history hardens. And yet, despite all this noise, one thing remains eerily unclear. What do Archie and Lilibet actually know about this family they are supposedly being kept from? Very little public information exists. And that absence, it's feeding speculation like oxygen to a fire. Because in the royal world, secrecy doesn't calm curiosity, it amplifies it.
Of course, you would hope that if they were so concerned about their children having connection with their grandparents and their auntie and uncle, you would hope, Angela, that they were also currently attempting to arrange meetings with Thomas Markle Sr., who has recently moved back to America after the amputation of his leg, and also Samantha.
Now the lens widens. The conversation spills beyond the palace walls, dragging in family tensions, past relationships, unresolved fractures, and suddenly this isn't just about Prince William and Prince Harry anymore. It's about patterns, repeated patterns, fractures that don't heal, divides that deepen, and every time someone tries to explain it, the explanation only seems to raise more questions. Because if everything is truly as simple as different lives, then why does it feel so complicated?
Sources are saying that William no longer recognizes his brother. He basically says he doesn't know who this kid is. Harry has become petulant. He's become vengeful. He's very angry at all times. And William's just kind of like, hey, who the heck are you? And yes, they do blame him.
And now the tone hardens again. Because when voices that were once sympathetic begin to shift, that's when the narrative starts to change. Frustration spreads, patience wears thin, and the question quietly forming in the background becomes impossible to ignore. Is this situation spiraling because of circumstance or because of choice? And just when it feels like the situation couldn't stretch any further, the focus shifts again, this time towards something even more sensitive. Something that sits quietly behind all the public arguments but carries the real weight of this entire conflict. Security, power, and the future balance of control inside the monarchy.
Got to a point that he's almost resigned to their, shall we say, unroyal-like behaviour that they have displayed over the last several years. He sighs, he rolls his eyes. He's just fed up of it all. He really is. But I think William feels like much of the country does about them. But the difference is for Prince William is the danger that his brother Harry and his wife Meghan Markle present to.
Because what looks like a legal dispute over protection suddenly starts to reveal something deeper after another setback involving official police protection. The claim emerges that the rug was pulled out at the last possible moment, but critics aren't buying that version of events. They're pointing to something far more uncomfortable, that the rules were always clear, that stepping away from royal duties was never going to come without consequences, and that this battle isn't new, it's just louder now. And when you place that against the growing distance between Prince Harry and Prince William, the pattern becomes harder to ignore. Every move, every challenge, every public statement, it all seems to circle back to the same unresolved tension. And then comes the detail that changes everything. Counselor of State, a title that sounds ceremonial until you realize what it actually means. Because if something happens, if circumstances shift, if the unexpected occurs, Prince Harry could still hold the authority to act on behalf of the crown. And suddenly, the question isn't just about personal conflict anymore. It's about risk, about control, about what Prince William might be quietly calculating behind closed doors. Because this isn't theoretical. This is structural. built into the system itself. Now layer that with what's already happened. The rushed announcement of stepping back, the Sandringham summit, the fracture that followed. Critics argue it wasn't just the decision, it was the way it unfolded. Public before private, declaration before agreement. And once that line was crossed, there was no going back. Trust didn't just crack, it shattered. And from that moment, every interaction became filtered through that same lens of caution. Then comes the irony that keeps resurfacing like a shadow that won't disappear. The suggestion that the very role once rejected might be the one that fits best. That beneath everything, the headlines, the appearances, the distance, there's a lingering sense of something missing. Not just status, not just structure, but purpose. The kind of purpose that was once clearly defined, now replaced with something far less certain. And that uncertainty, it shows. But while that internal conflict builds, something else is happening on the other side. A shift, not loud, not dramatic, but unmistakable. Because where there was once frustration, there is now absence. Conversations where Prince Harry no longer comes up. Moments where the past is no longer revisited. And that silence, it's not peaceful. It's final. Because when someone stops reacting, stops engaging, stops even mentioning your name, that's when the real distance sets in. And then the pattern repeats itself again. Back channels. Conditions, quiet signals sent through intermediaries. The suggestion of reconciliation, but only under specific terms. Only if certain boxes are checked. And that's where the tension spikes again. Because from the outside, it doesn't look like an open door. It looks like a negotiation, a list, a controlled re-entry. And for Prince William and Catherine, that's exactly the kind of dynamic they appear determined to avoid. Because this is no longer just about repairing a relationship, it's about protecting a structure, a family unit that has already been through public scrutiny, private strain, and relentless pressure. And at the center of that structure, George, Charlotte, and Louis, the next generation, the future. And every decision now seems to orbit around one question: what keeps that future stable? That's why the distance remains. That's why the silence holds. And that's why, despite everything being said publicly, the real decisions are happening quietly, behind walls that don't leak easily. And then, almost unexpectedly, the focus shifts again, this time toward Catherine. A completely different controversy, but one that reveals just how intense the scrutiny has become. The criticism over medical privacy, the suggestion that more should have been revealed, and the backlash that followed. Because suddenly, the line between public interest and personal boundaries was pushed too far. And the response was immediate, sharp, defensive, protective. Because at the core of all of this, beyond the titles, beyond the roles, beyond the conflicts, there's a simple reality that keeps resurfacing. Control over what is shared, control over what is protected, control over what is allowed in and what is kept out. And that brings everything full circle. Because what started as a question about whether Archie and Lilibet should spend time with George, Charlotte, and Louis now looks like something far more calculated. A line being drawn, not publicly, not officially, but clearly. And maybe the most revealing part of all is that behind closed doors, the situation might not even be under discussion anymore. Not debated, not reconsidered, just quietly decided. Which leaves one final question hanging in the air, unanswered and increasingly difficult to ignore if this truly has become a Cold War. Then, is the distance temporary, or has the decision already been made with no intention of ever reversing it?